Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I support Roe v. Wade.
That means he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth.
That is simply not true. We are not for late-term abortion, period, with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look.
We had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it.
There's no data to support what he said. Once again, he's exaggerating, he's lying. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now.
But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. He caused the inflation, and it's killing black families and Hispanic families.
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 15% unemployment. He decimated the economy. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world.
He said the only one who wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job.
The only existential threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion. It was a ripoff of the United States. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country.
Presidential historians, they've had meetings and they voted who's the worst president in American history. One through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history.
He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
The only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again.
We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America.
The Supreme Court ruled that former U.S. presidents retain significant immunity for acts taken while in office. New York University law professor Ryan Goodman breaks down the court's opinion and what it means for Donald Trump's election interference case.
This is an enormous case for the court. It's one that will be studied for decades. They basically divide up all the allegations against President Trump into 3 categories. Category 1, issues that are within the president's core powers and he's completely immune from prosecution. Those issues can't even be used as evidence in the case. A good example of that the Supreme Court gives is the pressure that President Trump is alleged to have applied to the Justice Department. The majority says that is within a president's core constitutional authority. A second category is a middle category, things for which a president is presumptively immune, but the government could rebut that presumption and they could potentially be used in the case. A very good example that they give of that is the president's communications with the vice president. And for that, the court says that the lower courts will have to determine whether or not those will maintain their presumptive immunity. And then there's a third category, actions that a president takes that are within his or her personal capacity. Those are not immune and they can be prosecuted. The court speaks to the future. It's not just about the immediacy of President Trump's trial. Big questions about whether a president could ever be criminally prosecuted or criminally liable for directing their Justice Department, for example, to prosecute individuals at their own behest. The court seems to be saying that that is an absolute power of the president that is not subject to review by prosecutors or by courts.
So you write that that you did not come to this decision lightly. Can you explain why you ultimately did decide to speak out publicly at this moment today?
You know, when my wife and I watched the debate last Thursday, we were so hoping for the momentum to overcome the lag that we've had in the last year. Instead, we were disappointed to see lies by Trump not refuted effectively and effective defense of the successes of the Biden administration. I was so moved by that evening that the next morning I was out to talk on the floor of Congress with our leadership and with as many of my colleagues as I could find to express the view that it was time for a replacement and for President Biden to step aside.
Mr. President, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the debate. You and your team have said you had a bad night, but your friend Nancy Pelosi actually framed the question that I think is on the minds of millions of Americans. Was this a bad episode or the sign of a more serious condition?
It's a bad episode. No indication of any serious condition. I was exhausted. I didn't listen to my instincts in terms of preparing, and I had a bad night.
You know, you say you were exhausted, and I know you've said that before as well, but you came, and you did have a tough month, but you came home from Europe about 11 or 12 days before the debate, spent 6 days in Camp David. Why wasn't that enough rest time, enough recovery time?
Because I was sick. I was feeling terrible. Matter of fact, the docs with me, I asked if they did a COVID test because they were trying to figure out what was wrong. They did a test to see whether or not I had some infection, a virus. I didn't. They just had a really bad cold. What I looked at is that he also lied 28 times. The way the debate ran, not my fault, nobody else's fault. No one else's fault.
But it seemed like you were having trouble from the first question in, even before he spoke.
Well, I just had a bad night.
If you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened. Oh.
Move to the bus. Move to the bus. Let me get my shoes. Okay, my shoes down. My shoes. Watch out.
I will never take for granted the trust you have put in me. And what an honor it is to help achieve the extraordinary vision that you have for this country. Now, I pledge to every American, no matter your party, I will give you everything I have to serve you and to make this country a place where every dream you have for yourself, your family, and your country will be possible once again. I will be a vice president who never forgets where he came from. And every single day for the next 4 years, when I walk into that White House to help President Trump, I will be doing it for you, for your family, for your future, and for this great country. Thank you. God bless all of you, and God bless our great country.
Friends, delegates, and fellow citizens, I stand before you this evening with a message of confidence, strength, and hope. 4 months from now, we will have an incredible victory, and we will begin the 4 greatest years in the history of our country. Together we will launch a new era of safety, prosperity, and freedom for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. The discord and division in our society must be healed. We must heal it quickly. As Americans, we are bound together by a single fate and a shared destiny. We rise together or we fall apart. I am running to be president for all of America, not half of America, because there is no victory in winning for half of America. So tonight, with faith and devotion, I proudly accept your nomination for President of the United States. Thank you.
When you elected me to this office, I promised to always level with you, to tell you the truth. And the truth, the sacred cause of this country, is larger than any one of us. And those of us who cherish that cause, cherish it so much, a cause of American democracy itself, must unite to protect it. You know, in recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor. I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation. You know, there is a time and a place for long years of experience in public life. There's also a time and a place for new voices, fresh voices, yes, younger voices. And that time and place is now. I'm calling for 3 bold reforms to restore trust and accountability to the court and our democracy. I'm calling for a constitutional amendment called No One is Above the Law Amendment. It holds, and I mean this sincerely, it holds that there's no immunity for crimes former president committed while in office. I share our founders' belief that the president must answer to the law. The president is accountable in the exercise of the great power of the presidency. We're a nation of laws, not kings and dictators. The second thing I'm asking for. We've had term limits for presidents of the United States for nearly 75 years after the Truman administration. And I believe we should have term limits for Supreme Court justices of the United States as well. Term limits would help ensure that the court membership changes with some regularity. That would make timing for the court's nomination more predictable and less arbitrary. Reduce the chance that any single presidency imposes undue influence in generations to come. Third, I'm calling for a binding code of conduct for the Supreme Court.
So, Georgia, it is so good to be back, and I am very clear. The path to the White House runs right through this state. And you all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024. Yes, we will. Yes, we will. In the next 98 days, we have our work cut out for us. And this is not going to be easy. This is hard work, but we like hard work. Hard work is good work. So, Georgia, today I ask you, are you ready to get to work? Do we believe in freedom? Do we believe fight for it. And when we fight, we win. God bless you. God bless the United States. Here's the thing. Since the day that I announced my candidacy, I set out to find a partner who can help build this brighter future. So, Pennsylvania, I'm here today because I found such a leader. Governor Tim Walz of the great state of Minnesota.
It's the honor of my life to accept your nomination for Vice President of the United States.
In our system of justice, a harm against any one of us is a harm against all of us. And I would often explain this to console survivors of crime, to remind them no one should be made to fight alone. We are all in this together. And every day in the courtroom, I stood proudly before a judge and I said 5 words: Kamala Harris for the people. And to be clear, my entire career, I've only had one client, the people. And so, on behalf of the people, on behalf of every American, regardless of party, race, gender, or the language your grandmother speaks, on behalf of my mother and everyone who has ever set out on their own unlikely journey, on behalf of Americans like the people I grew up with, people who work hard, chase their dreams, and look out for one another, on behalf of everyone whose story could only be written in the greatest nation on earth, I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
Many months ago, I promised the American people that I would withdraw from the race if I became a spoiler. A spoiler is someone who will alter the outcome of the election but has no chance of winning. In my heart, I no longer believe that I have a realistic path to electoral victory. Furthermore, our polling consistently showed that by staying on the ballot in the battleground states, I would likely hand the election over to the Democrats, with whom I disagree on the most existential issues: censorship, war, and chronic disease. It's with a sense of victory and not defeat that I'm suspending my campaign activities. 3 great causes drove me to enter this race in the first place, primarily. And these are the principal causes that persuaded me to leave the Democratic Party and run as an independent, and now to throw my support to President Trump.